here in New York City right now at Roundhill Music with living legend, Mr. G. Tom Mack. If you're like me, he defined a very significant part of your formative years from 1986 on, kind of providing what I call the soundtrack of my growing up a little bit. Lost Boys was such a huge movie for me growing up, and that song, Cry Little Sister, was just so present for me and for a lot of my friends. So it's an honor to be hanging out with you and talking about this today, and how the Lost Boys is still very much a big part of your life right now.
Well, thank you, first of all. And it's been a big part of my life.
Watching Lost Boys, the music is such a key, the music, especially your theme, I can't imagine that movie not having that theme.
I never thought in my wildest dreams that would go on to have the life that it's had of 53 movies I've done, music to. There's been some pretty cool stuff, but it's just had its, there are fans of mine that come to my shows that have never seen the movie. They know the song, and that's why they came. And you're missing half of what it is if you don't see this movie.
It's just an aura about it, though. I mean, when I first saw the movie, it was way before the days of the internet and being able to look up what was the song that played at this scene in that movie. So my friends and I at school, we called it the Ten Commandments song because
people didn't even know who did it back then. When the internet, to that point, when the internet did come into play, meaning like the early days of MySpace, and social media, if you will. I mean, even on YouTube, putting up my song up against film, or piece of where the film played or whatever, making up their own little videos to it, and saying it was Sisters of Mercy. And I thought, well, why Sisters of Mercy? Then I realized, in the advent of all things with
Napster,
when that all came into play. On those sheets were Cry Little Sister, Sisters of Mercy. There was an assumption made because nobody really bothered to look at the real album cover and go, okay, Gerard McMahon, that's what my name is, and that's what it was back then. We all went like, what? Over time, and thank God early days, we caught it. We told people, hey, we don't want to take it down, but just properly say who it's from.
Sure, okay.
So, to your point, there was nobody really knew for the longest time until I went back out on the road and started doing a lot of conventions and things like that. I was in New York when I wrote Cry Little Sister. Joel Schumacher, the director, had gotten in touch with me because he was a fan of my work. I didn't know him that well. I'd met him. He'd come to one of my gigs back in the day, and I said, would you like to write a theme song to my new movie? It's a movie called Lost Boys, a vampire movie. And I thought, wow, cool. I said, well, when can I take a look at the film? And he said, well, we're shooting, but I thought maybe you might get the inspiration by, if you read the script, I could send it on to you. And I said, well, let's have a look. I've never done that before. I'd always watched the movie to get a vibe, to see the thread of how the characters were flowing.
Right.
He sent me on the script, Warner's sent it over, and I just thought it was funny, horror, and that thing meeting in the middle. And I remember getting up the following morning after reading it the night before, and sat down at the piano, had my guitar, I was just going back and forth, and started getting the vibe, and then before you knew it, I was heading up to my studio to make a demo of it, and didn't have any lyrics yet. And as I was going up to the studio, I started hearing the chorus in my head. And, it was like New York back then. It was like crack dens here, and then, it was like you. I don't know. You're probably too young.
We weren't. That was when we weren't allowed to go to the city by ourselves.
Yeah, right.
It was like they're not allowed to go, but we all still did anyway. But
thank God I was allowed to go. I was still immature at that time as well. Still am. But it was the defining moment, just getting in a cab. Everything just sort of came as it did. And then a friend of mine, Mike Manieri, who's a jazz guy, was in another room, and he had another studio room, and he was pounding away on this beat. And I thought, wow, that's the groove to my song. I said, what is that? And he said, I'm just working on something I think we were trying to figure something out for an advert or something. I said, come on, give me that. And I just took that beat, and I just kept taking what I already had and started implementing those factors, and I started building upon what was to be the demo at that point. I sent the demo to Joel, having no idea if he'd even like it, and rang me back in about 3-5 days later. I was having a horrible hangover, I remember that. And I could hear I had an answer phone, one of those old answer phones, and I could hear his voice coming over the answer phone machine.
Yeah.
And saying, "Pick up, G, pick up. This is." So he called me by my real name, Gerard. And I'm going, "What is he? Who is that?" And I could hear the song, the demo in the background. And I'm going, "Well, that's interesting." So I go out and I pick up, and he said, "How did you know?" I said, "How do I know what?" He said, "Your song is perfect. I want it everywhere. It's the theme to my movie. This is amazing. I had no idea you would come up with something. If you could only see how this is working against what we're doing." And I'm going like, "All right, I think I need to go back to bed, Joel. Can I call you later?"